What happens when love, loyalty, and lies collide in the spotlight? Jim Jones, rapper, reality star, and longtime partner of Chrissy Lampkin, has just filed for divorce in a shocking twist that no one saw coming. Or did they? Behind closed doors, whispers of betrayal have been growing louder, and now a bombshell DNA test has cracked the truth wide open. For over 2 decades, fans watched their love unfold on shows like Love and Hip Hop, cheering for their loyalty and raw chemistry. But something was always off. Delayed proposals, subtle tensions, and unspoken secrets. Still, no one expected this. A DNA test has allegedly confirmed that Chrissy wasn't just keeping secrets. She may have spun an entire web of lies. And Jim? He's done playing the fool, but what led to this explosive unraveling? Who's really to blame? And what comes next for a couple who wants to find ride or die? Let's dive deep into the scandal that's tearing apart one of hip-hop's most iconic couples. This is the full story. No filters, no edits, just truth. For years, Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin were considered one of hip-hop's most iconic power couples. Raw, unfiltered, and passionate. From the streets of Harlem to the set of Love and hip-hop New York, their relationship played out like a soap opera. Messy, loud, but always magnetic. Fans rooted for them, critics doubted them, but through it all, they stayed together. Or so we thought. Before the scandal, before the divorce papers, the DNA test, and the betrayal, there was a love story. A complicated, chaotic, but very real love story that, in hindsight, always had cracks beneath the surface. Jim and Chrissy's relationship began in the early 2000s. She was already known in the industry, not just as a stylist and businesswoman, but as someone who knew the game inside and out. He was on the rise as a rapper, making waves with Dipset and carving out a name of his own. Together, they made sense. She grounded him. He gave her purpose. At least that's what it looked like. Their chemistry was undeniable, but their relationship was anything but traditional. Chrissy was the one who proposed, not Jim. And that moment, captured on Love and Hip Hop, became one of the most viral and talked about scenes in reality TV history. Some called it empowering, others called it desperate. But no matter where you stood, you couldn't ignore how unusual it was. Jim never actually followed through with a wedding. Over the years, there were rumors of commitment issues, infidelity, and endless arguments behind the scenes. Still, Chrissy stayed. Through thick and thin, through public arguments and private betrayals, she stayed. But was that loyalty or something else? In interviews, Chrissy often brushed off questions about why they never married. "Marriage isn't everything," she'd say. "We're happy the way we are." But fans started to notice a pattern. Jim would avoid serious conversations. He'd laugh off serious topics. And Chrissy? She always looked like she was waiting for him to grow up, waiting for him to commit, waiting for him to be the man she believed he could be. Behind the scenes, things were far more complicated than what fans saw on screen. Sources close to the couple say that Chrissy held a lot of power in the relationship, not just emotionally, but financially. She helped manage his image. She helped steer his business decisions. She even allegedly covered for him when things got messy. But in doing so, she also kept her own secrets. There were quiet whispers for years, questions about certain family matters that never quite added up. Rumors about inconsistencies in personal stories, strange absences, odd behavior, but no one ever pressed too hard, not until recently. Jim, known for his loyalty to those close to him, started getting more involved in family matters, especially after the loss of his mother, Nancy Mama Jones. Her passing reportedly hit him hard, making him reevaluate who he trusted and who he had around him. That's when things started shifting. He became quieter, more withdrawn from the public. And Chrissy? She stayed busy with her own ventures, keeping a distance from the spotlight. But something was clearly off. Fans noticed that Jim wasn't posting Chrissy as much. They weren't appearing in interviews together. And there was a strange tension whenever they were caught in public, like they were playing roles they no longer believed in. Then came the breaking point. According to sources, Jim stumbled upon information that led him to question a deeply personal matter, something related to family lineage, identity, and truth. It was serious enough that he ordered a DNA test, hoping to quietly settle his doubts. But what he found shattered everything. The results confirmed what he feared, that a critical truth had been kept from him, a truth that pointed directly to Chrissy. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't just a miscommunication. It was a lie. A deliberate, calculated lie that had been maintained for years. Jim's world flipped overnight, and so did his relationship with Chrissy. This wasn't about cheating or drama. This was about trust, identity, and the feeling that he had been played, manipulated, used. The man who once said Chrissy was the love of his life now felt like he never truly knew her at all. And that's when the decision came. Cold, fast, and final. Jim filed for divorce. There were no public statements at first. No Instagram captions, no tearful interviews. Just court papers quietly filed, signaling the end of a 2-decade love story. When news of the divorce hit the internet, fans were stunned. Many assumed they weren't even married to begin with. But sources say the couple had a private civil union years ago, not widely publicized, mostly for legal and financial reasons. And now Jim was cutting all ties. But if part 1 of this story is about the relationship, the rise and the tension, then part 2 is about the DNA test that changed everything. Who did the DNA involve? What exactly did Chrissy lie about, and why? Did it take Jim all these years to finally pull the plug? Stay tuned, because in part 2, we uncover the exact moment the truth exploded, and the damage it left behind, the quiet before the storm was over. Jim Jones had filed for divorce, and now the world was starting to catch up to the real reason behind the shocking split. It wasn't a scandal based on infidelity. It wasn't about money, fame, or even the pressures of the spotlight. No, this was deeper, more personal. This was about identity, family, betrayal of the highest order, and it all centered around a DNA test. Let's rewind. As Jim Jones grew older, especially after the devastating loss of his mother, Nancy "Mama" Jones, he became more introspective. Sources say her death triggered something in him, a need to understand his roots, preserve his legacy, and protect what truly mattered. He started questioning things, looking deeper into his personal life. That's when the cracks started forming. People around him, close family members, even longtime friends, began to raise quiet concerns. Questions were asked, inconsistencies started piling up. And at the center of those questions was a figure who had always been right by his side, Chrissy Lampkin. There was one particular situation that stood out, a child. No, not one Jim fathered, but one allegedly connected to Chrissy in a way she never disclosed fully. Rumors began swirling that Chrissy had a child before she met Jim, or possibly during a break in their relationship. She never mentioned the child publicly. In fact, she denied the very existence of any biological ties, but whispers claimed otherwise, and Jim had started to listen. Jim, feeling like pieces weren't adding up, decided to act quietly. No drama, no shouting matches, just facts. He reportedly ordered a private DNA test, possibly involving himself and the alleged child, or involving the child and Chrissy. The details are still murky, tightly held by legal teams. But what's clear is this: the results broke everything wide open. According to a close source, the DNA test confirmed a biological connection that Chrissy had flat out denied for years. It wasn't just a lie of omission, it was a direct contradiction to what she had told Jim over and over again. The moment he saw the results, everything changed. It wasn't just about the child, it was about the lie, the deception, the manipulation. Imagine giving your life to someone, emotionally, financially, spiritually, and then finding out that they've been hiding a secret of this magnitude. For Jim, it wasn't about what happened in the past. It was about the years spent trusting someone who chose to keep him in the dark. The betrayal hit hard. To outsiders, the news of a DNA test might sound like gossip fuel. But for Jim, it struck at the core of his values: loyalty, family, truth. These weren't just words to him, they were part of his identity, deeply rooted in the Harlem streets that raised him. Chrissy, meanwhile, was silent. Deafeningly so, She didn't release a statement. She didn't deny or confirm anything. She simply disappeared from the public eye, leaving fans confused, curious, and hungry for answers. Her Instagram went quiet. No stories, no cryptic captions. Just silence. That silence, however, spoke volumes. Privately, insiders say Chrissy was devastated. Not because she had been caught, but because she knew it was over. The one man who had stood by her through everything had finally reached his limit. And this time, there was no coming back. Friends of Jim say he was heartbroken, not angry, disappointed, not vengeful. This wasn't about revenge or destroying Chrissy's reputation. It was about closure, ending something that had already been emotionally over for years. The DNA test wasn't the beginning of the end. It was just the confirmation. In legal filings, Jim's team allegedly referenced irreconcilable differences stemming from material misrepresentations made during the relationship. Translation: she lied about something too big to forgive. Still, some fans tried to defend Chrissy, asking, "Why does it matter now? Why dig into the past?" But those fans missed the point. This wasn't about history. It was about trust. About the years Jim spent investing in a future with someone who never gave him the full truth. And when the final truth came via lab results, it left no room for doubt or denial. Jim, always known for his tough exterior, started pulling away from the public. He wasn't doing interviews, he wasn't doing press. But one thing was clear: he was changing, and fast. Gone was the laid-back rapper who coasted through controversies. In his place was a man on a mission to reclaim his peace, protect his legacy, and distance himself from toxic energy, no matter how familiar it felt. Meanwhile, the media circus began. Bloggers speculated, podcasts debated. Was Chrissy the villain, or was Jim overreacting? Did the DNA test really justify a divorce after 20 years? But those questions ignored the personal cost, the emotional exhaustion, the years of doubt that finally found clarity in one sheet of paper. Jim reportedly leaned on close friends during this time, people like Cameron and other Dipset members, but even that dynamic wasn't immune from tension. Cam and Jim had their own history of falling out and reconciling. And now, with new drama unfolding, some say Cam offered support, while others hint he may have known something about Chrissy's secret long before Jim did. If that's true, it would explain why Jim became so cold, not just toward Chrissy, but toward everyone involved. The betrayal wasn't just one person's lie. It was a system of silence. A circle that allowed the deception to go unchecked. And now, Jim was done playing along. By the time news of the divorce went public, Jim had already emotionally moved on. The court filings were a formality. The DNA test, a receipt, proof that he wasn't crazy, that his instincts were right, that the people closest to him had failed him in the worst way. But what happens when you walk away from a 20-year love story and leave it all behind? What happens to the legacy, to the pain, to the woman who once got down on one knee and asked you to marry her? In part 3, we dive into the fallout, the public reaction, the private regrets, and what comes next for Jim Jones now that he's finally walking away from Chrissy Lampkin, and the lie that defined their relationship when Jim Jones filed for a divorce. It wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the collapse of an empire they had quietly built together over 2 decades. It was a message to Chrissy, to the industry, to fans, and to everyone who had watched their story unfold on reality TV. Enough is enough. The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was cultural. This wasn't just another celebrity breakup. It was the undoing of a relationship people had been invested in since the early 2000s. For a generation that watched Love and Hip Hop from day one, Jim and Chrissy were supposed to be different. Real, flawed, yes, but still ride or die. So when news of a divorce dropped, and the reason turned out to be a long-buried lie exposed by a DNA test, fans were torn. Some were shocked. Others weren't surprised at all. Online, reactions exploded. Twitter threads, YouTube breakdowns, TikTok theories, everyone had an opinion. One viral tweet read, "Chrissy proposed to Jim. He never married her. 20 years later, he finds out she lied about something major. How do you come back from that? Another user commented, Jim been moving different since Mama Jones passed. That woman knew something. I feel like this whole thing been building for years. Indeed, the more people looked back at old interviews and episodes, the more they started to question everything. Fans rewatched Chrissy's 2011 proposal scene with new eyes. That desperate, emotional moment, once seen as bold, now felt like a strategic move. Was it love? Or was it control? And what about Jim? For years, he was painted as the indecisive one, the emotionally unavailable partner who wouldn't commit. But in this new light, some wondered if he sensed the truth, even if he didn't have the evidence. The narrative was shifting. The DNA test hadn't just uncovered a lie, it had rewritten a whole history. Behind closed doors, the emotional toll was massive. Sources say Jim took the breakup hard. Not because he wanted Chrissy back, but because it forced him to question everything. Every memory, every moment, every time he chose loyalty over logic. He'd stayed with her through it all. Career highs, public humiliation, financial risks. And now he realized she had been hiding something foundational. Something he should have known from the start. He wasn't just grieving the loss of a partner. He was grieving the loss of the truth. As for Chrissy, insiders say she's struggling too. Not with being exposed, but with the public silence. She's used to being seen, heard, and admired as the strong, take-no-nonsense woman who doesn't chase validation. But in this case, silence has become her only defense. There have been no interviews, no damage control, just whispers. Some say she regrets ever hiding the truth. Others say she's preparing her own side of the story, one that might cast Jim in a different light. But for now, the court of public opinion has spoken, and Chrissy is losing that battle. Interestingly, Jim hasn't bashed her publicly. No interviews, no diss tracks, no cryptic posts. That restraint is what makes this situation even more chilling. He's not trying to embarrass her, he's just gone. Quiet. Focused. Intent on moving forward without dragging the past behind him. In recent months, Jim's been seen in the studio, in the gym, and even filming content with Dipset affiliates, showing signs of emotional rebirth. He's not the same man who once avoided serious questions about marriage. He's sharper, more direct, wiser. Some fans have begun calling this Jim's reawakening, a new chapter where he's putting himself first, finally. He's also opened up to close friends about the emotional manipulation he experienced. One source close to Jim said, "It wasn't just the lie. It was how long she let it go. How many chances she had to come clean. That's what really broke him." Legal experts believe the divorce may become messier behind the scenes, especially if financial assets, shared properties, or private agreements were tied to the alleged deception. But Jim doesn't seem focused on revenge. If anything, he's focused on release, emotionally and spiritually. Meanwhile, the entertainment world is left asking, how did this happen? How did one of reality TV's most enduring couples end up here? To understand that, we have to go back to what their relationship always was: imbalanced. Chrissy was always the assertive one, the one making the first move, setting the tone, pushing for marriage, steering the ship. Jim, while charismatic and talented, often played the passive role. But passivity doesn't mean stupidity. Over time, passiveness turns into patience, and eventually into clarity. And when the clarity hit, it hit hard.